Welcome to this movie all about requirements and user stories, featuring the ZDLC Smart ALM platform and specifically the House of Quality and the requirements modeling solution. So in this movie, in previous movies we've looked at House of Quality in order to generate requirements, create requirements, prioritize them, sort out codependencies and understand utility. In this movie we're going to see how House of Quality can be used to drive the creation of user stories or journeys, and from those generate process flows, and from there generate what we call tier scenarios. Those tier scenarios will be used in the process of creating a tier model in the testable integration architecture suite. That will be used to create an abstract model which can be tested and artifacts generated from it, and then we can augment those scenarios with concrete detail, because user journeys and stories don't always have that information. Create or extend the abstract model to include the concrete details, test, generate artifacts that will drive delivery. Hope you enjoy the movie. Thanks very much for listening, and sit back and enjoy. So as with the previous movie on House of Quality, here we can see an example of a House of Quality with some stakeholders who are prioritized, and this particular example is based on a auditing platform, and here we've got the drivers for change for that auditing platform, and this follows the standard process of scoring things based on high, medium and low. We've got some additional attributes now in House of Quality to say that things are not linked or we don't have enough data as well. So we've got different forms, if you like, of null value, which can have specific meaning. So this particular House of Quality is quite a large one, as it turns out. It's pretty much 5 levels deep. And that last level really includes the final set of requirements against which we really want to build some user journeys or user stories. So you can see that there's various detail encapsulated within the House of Quality. So we've added comment fields and so on and so forth. So when we're ready, we can click on our RMS button at the bottom level of our House of Quality, and that will bring up our requirements modeling solution. So this operates in a similar style. So here on the left hand side you've got the last level of requirements from House of Quality, so it's pre-populated, so it's that last level there, level 5, and it checks to make sure that these are all filled in, and if they're not, then you haven't really finished the job. So any of these requirements, you just click on them and drag things from the palette to create them. We've got one already built here. So we can go and drag an actor onto the palette and position it, and we can drag an action, because these are all based on actors and actions and linkages between them. And if we want to link them, we just we fill in the details. So we've got a broker, and we've got an action called create bookings, for example. And the way that we connect them is we bump the action into the actor, that connects it, and if we want to do it the other way, it disconnects it. So if we drag the actor to the action, it disconnects. So it's pretty intuitive, very easy to use on an iPad, and pretty easy to use on a desktop as well. So we can compile the use case, the user journey, to check that things are okay. So here we've got an orphan action, and we've got an actor that's not connected. It also checks to see that the stakeholder names are actually represented in the House of Quality under the stakeholders. So it does all sorts of checks. So when we connect it again and we do the compile, it says, hey look, this is okay, we can carry on from here. So pretty easy to use, and very useful, because it makes sure that all of the best practices inherent in building these use cases are adhered to. So all of the links have different attributes as well. So we've got different sorts of attributes. You can see some have red and some have just green. So you can add additional detail for any of those attributes. And this is essentially how we build it, and we can add additional detail to some of these. So one of the interesting things we can do is start selecting some components, and when we've selected the right number of components for what we need to do, so here I'm selecting them, we can press on a little button and we can generate a process flow. Now a process flow is sort of swim lanes with a kind of flow chart structure. And when we've generated those, so here I'm just simply selecting the appropriate user stories, and you can do it across multiple user stories as well. and it will figure out all the decision points and what have you. So when we're ready, we can simply generate the process flow, and the process flow will come up, and we can start to play with the process flow. So here's a process flow. So you can see that you've got a flow chart across a number of swim lanes. So we've only picked 2 sets of things, so there's only 2 swim lanes. And once we're ready and happy with our process flow, all generated, so we didn't actually have to write this at all, we can select all the components from our process flow and ask to create a tier scenario. So these are the same scenarios, and there we go, we're going to create the scenarios now. These are the same scenarios that power testable integration architecture. So you can see that they're being created, and we can download those because the tool is different when we go into the tier domain, and we can put those into our Eclipse environment, as ZDLC Eclipse environment, and start playing with those scenarios as well. And once we've got those scenarios, we can bring them up, we can have a look at them, and they just are these sequence diagrams that we've seen before in what is effectively the 3rd tutorial movie for tier. And of course, if you've got these scenarios, and you can see it's managed to come up with all of the function names and the method types and the names of the swim lanes, all based on the flow, and we can double check between all of them to make sure that they're all okay. But we can use these scenarios to then generate, or partially generate, our tier model, and we can then test that model against the scenarios, and that model is an all-encompassing model of how all of the components in our solution should work together. So here we're just tracking down and looking at some of the scenarios just to make sure that they match what we want. So we hope you've enjoyed this quality cognizant movie all about requirements and user stories featuring the ZDLC Smart ALM platform, House of Quality and RMS. My name's Steve Ross-Talbot. You can reach me at steve.ross-talbot@cognizant.com. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.